day to you all. You all are welcome to our first class of creative speeches and pitches. I will be your instructor today. My name is Adeza Omar Farouk, Mr. Cairo. This class is meant for aspiring writers and young poets and people who are aspiring to be public speakers. Do sit back and enjoy. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about the definition of poetry. We're going to talk about rhyme. We're going to talk about end rhyme and rhyme scheme. What is poetry? Poetry is a type of literature that conveys a thought, describe a scene, or tell a story in a concentrated lyrical arrangement of words. So what we are saying here is poetry is a form of literature that show a thought, or describe a scene, or tell a story in the form of a song. Then we said what? Poems can be structured with rhyming lines and meter. The rhythm and emphasis of a line based on syllabic beats. Poems can also be free form, which flows no formal structure. What we are saying here is poems can be structured in the way of a rhythmic line, rhyming line and meter. And also it takes a form of a rhythm, a beat, a unified beat. An emphasis on the line based on syllabic meter, on syllables. And also poems can also be free form without rhyming or rhythmic something. So poems can also be free form, which follows no formal structure. So poems can be written without rhyming and meter. Poetry is an art that is written or spoken in rhythmical composition. The purpose of poetry is to entertain by creating a beautiful or imaginative thought. The purpose of writing poetry is to entertain by creating a thought, a beautiful thought or imagination to your readers. Some poetry are written in verses, while some aren't. So like we said they are written in lyrical form in our previous slide. So we're saying here that some poetry are written in verses like a song, while some aren't. Then we said what? There are many different types and format for poetry varying by the lines. So we have different types of poetry forms, and also they vary from the lines, repetition and rhyming. So they are the forms of poetry are differentiated by what? The lines, repetition and rhyming. Next slide. Popular subjects often used in poetry are what? Nature and feeling. These subjects are mostly used in writing poetry. We describe our nature, the trees, the sky, the stars, the moon, the sun. All of these are nature, so we describe them using poetry. And also feelings. We talk about our loved one, a departed, or a feeling that happened to us we cannot forget, maybe a heartbreak and all. Also, let's look at the definition of poetry from a dictionary. Poetry is the art of rhythmical composition, written or spoken for exciting pleasure by beautiful, imaginative or elevated thoughts. So what we are saying here is poetry is a form of art that's written in a unified rhythm or beats composition. It can be written or spoken for exciting pleasure, to give us that joy, that poetic joy, and also by showing beautiful, imaginative or elevated thoughts. Now let's look at what? Rhyme. Poetry treats language as an art form. Rhyming poetry takes this to the next level. As one word selected to end a particular line may affect a word selection on a subsequent line. So what we're saying here is what? Poetry treats language as an art form. It takes and rhyming takes it to the next level. So by writing poetry with rhyming, it takes it gives that feeling, it gives that flavor to your poem. So rhymed poems have endured for untold centuries of human civilization. So what we're saying is rhyme poems have been there for a long time, since the classical poets till date. So it has endured all the changes, all the transition through time. So here, if you look closely, we have some questions here. the reasons, they're actually not questions, they're actually reasons why poets use rhyme. Why do poets use rhyme? Poets use rhyme because it enhances the music of a poem with chimed words. So by writing your poem with rhyme, it brings that taste, that music taste, that flavor, you know, it makes your poem a song-like. So that's why poets use rhyme when they write poetry. So we said what? It gives reader a sense of expectation. When reading a poem with rhymes, it actually tells you what to expect, what to see, what do you expect to come in the next line in the poem. And also it gives a poem structure. It gives it a structure and makes it easier to memorize. So, next slide. We have some examples here to support what we just discussed. We said what? The first one is, no thanks. I would rather eat roaches and grasshopper punch than try to digest even one more school lunch. Wow, this is a good rhyme poem. Let's try the next one. Jasper James. In the lunchroom, Jasper James ate 12 helpings of baked beans. 1 hour later, filled with gas, he emptied out our science class. Interesting. Very beautiful rhyme poem. Then let's try the last one. Crowded tub. There's too many kids in this tub. There's too many elbows to scrub. I just washed a behind that I'm sure wasn't mine. There's too many kids in this tub. So these are good examples of rhyme poems. So this is a very important something to note. Not all poetry rhyme. For example, blank verse, for instance, is a poetic form that features rhythmic rules such as iambic pentameter. Though it's a poem written without rhymes, but it gives room for the use of patterning and syllables using iambic pentameter. It has no rhymes. Then we said what? Free verse makes no requirement for meter or rhyme. Free verse is another form of poetry written that gives no room for meter or rhyme. Let's try our hands on this explanation. It's actually a poem explaining what rhyme and rhyme scheme is. Okay. Words rhyme if they sound alike. Poems often use rhyme at the end of the lines. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhymes in a poem. Poets use rhyme to add a musical sound to their poem. And rhyme. Let's talk about and rhyme. A word at the end of one line rhymes with a word at the end of another line. For example, Hector the collector collected beads of strings, collected dolls with broken heads and rusty bells that will not ring. So, this brings us to the end of our class today. But before we go, we have some exercises for you to try your hands on. For example, number 1, make your own definition of poetry. What is poetry in your own definition? Number 2, what is rhyme? Number 3, what are the types of rhyme? Number 4, write your own poem with rhymes. Thank you very much. I do hope this class is going to be helpful to you all. Bye-bye.